Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Coffee and Headlines. Today is Friday. I was going to go Friday. Today is Friday, July 3rd, one day before Independence Day in the United States, and we are here gathered just like every morning, 10:30 in the morning, live from Facebook, eager to look at what's going on around the world in places near and far and how stories and headlines affect us here in sunny Puerto Vallarta. It is always a pleasure to see familiar faces that come back morning after morning, and it is always a pleasure to welcome new faces to our little get-togethers. If you happen to be new, feel free to let us know by writing the word new in your comments, and we'll try our best to give you a proper welcome. It is so great to see all of you. Mandy McPherson, I hear through the grapevine that you are in Puerto Vallarta. Let's get together and have pizza or something. It's great to read you all. It's great to see you. Chris tells us that Billy Stritch sang Where Do You Start last night on his Thursday night Facebook concert. That's wonderful. I insist. It's such a beautiful song. It's my favorite English language breakup song. I don't think there's anything as beautiful as that. So it is Friday. It is the beginning of the weekend, and I'm excited because the weather is fresh again. It's really wonderful. And today we're going to take a look at a few news items that are relevant to what we're talking about. I'm going to respond to some of the things that you told me during the week that you were either reading or watching or otherwise enjoying, because I've had some chance to go and research and learn more about the things that are important to you. And last but not least, I'm going to have a wonderful surprise because on Sunday Funday, we are going to have a very, very special guest. A good friend of mine, and I am going to tell you about this in a second. But first, let's take a look at a few news items. Well, as we've been mentioning in the last few days, the Tourism Bureau has been working on campaigns to bring tourists back to Puerto Vallarta. They've been doing this on Facebook, YouTube, in Google promotions, and on their websites, trying to encourage people, primarily from Guadalajara and Mexico City, to come and spend a few days with us. The city, for the most part, is ready to receive tourism, albeit at a small number or a smaller number than usual. But just about everything that a tourist might enjoy, with the exception, of course, of our nightlife and bars, is ready to welcome people. So this is going on. At the same time, we learn that the Malecón is now open at 50%. And curiously enough, the news item comes attached to the perceived percentage of people that were using or not using face masks, meaning by that there's only 50% people allowed, and what they discovered is about half of the people were wearing face masks, the other half were not. We've talked about face masks so many times here, and again, some people will wear them, other people will not. It's easy to get frustrated about this, but it's also easy to just take care of yourself and put it out of your mind and stay away from people or situations that make you feel compromised. And that's basically it. Certain recreational activities like jogging and walking and skateboarding and bicycle riding are only permitted in very specific areas. So if you're not a tourist, if you're not visiting the city, then don't go to the Malecón. I mean, there are other places in which, if you want to go exercise or do things like that, you may want to consider just staying away from the Malecón, at least for a little while. And hopefully things will continue to relax in terms of what we can and cannot do. I wanted to show you, well, I'm going to give you a link to this directory of municipal offices. You had been asking about the number for reglamentos and so forth and so on. Well, there's this handy dandy directory available online of all the the local government offices that you could possibly need, including reglamentos. Of course, the two numbers are listed here, and I will be so happy to share this with you so that you can make phone calls and denounce if it comes to that. I also wanted to tell you about this mobility plan for S that is going to be that Puerto Vallarta is going to be a part of. This is something that's going on nationwide. Let me take a quick look at this. There is such a thing as a federal proposal called the Mobility Plan for S. 4S. It sounds like a spy operation, but it isn't. The 4 S's are saludable, which means healthy, seguro, which is safe, sustentable, which is sustainable, and solidario, which is solidary. And this is a proposal at federal level for cities to modify mobility in such a way that the public spaces are better utilized, considering better pedestrian opportunities, better bicycle riding opportunities, and everything that has to do with mobility, but at a local level. This is a series of guidelines that have been developed by, again, the federal government. And the reason this is important is because Puerto Vallarta will be part of this mobility plan. What does this mean right now? Well, nothing specifically just yet, but Puerto Vallarta is expected to be releasing new plans to increase the ability that we have to walk safely from one place to another, to ride our bicycles from one place to another. Imagine that. And I'm sorry, that was a cynic comment, but I used to be a bicycle rider, and when I came to Puerto Vallarta almost 20 years ago, I realized this is not a place where I feel safe riding a bicycle. So, but it's changing, and hopefully it'll continue to change for the better. And hopefully, as Puerto Vallarta becomes part of this federal strategy, then we will see improvement in the way our sidewalks are laid out and paths for bicycle riders and for pedestrians become improved throughout the city. The last formal piece of news item that I have is an interesting article that a friend shared with me regarding what is going to happen with the new trade agreement with between Mexico, the United States, and Canada as far as unions are concerned. Again, this is a very deep, intense article that has to do with the way unions are structured in the three different countries and how this trade agreement allows them to continue or not continue to operate the way they have. For those of you that are curious about this upcoming visit that Andrés Manuel López Obrador, the president of Mexico, will have with President Trump in the United States, this might be an interesting read. Taking a quick look at your comments, Mandy McPherson is fake news. Here I was thinking that you were here. I have a feeling this is a dumb question, but who's catching the virus? Is it locals or tourists? I don't think that's a dumb question. I think humans are catching the virus, Sherry. I think it's affecting all of us. I think it is affecting all of us. I certainly don't think it's a tourist versus locals thing. And I have read a lot of scathing comments about, well, we don't want tourists coming to Puerto Vallarta because they bring the virus. Well, you know what? Could look at it the other way around and say, well, I don't want to go to Puerto Vallarta because there's a lot of virus there. So I think, again, we're all catching the virus, so we're all having to be responsible for ourselves. It was much busier than previous Thursday. Many tourists. Yes, tourism is increasing, Dave. And this is a good thing for our economy. Let us just hope that as the number of people in the Bay continues to increase, that many of us, hopefully most of us, and ideally all of us, will continue to be mindful of what we need to do to keep ourselves safe and other people around us. Um, Geoff tells us that Reina's Bar and Que Pasa are following regulations, and this is good to know because that means that if we go and visit these places, we can feel comfortable knowing that we are going to be safe. Um, Please keep that in mind. Um, Mobility is something that is important to me, Dale, and I think it should be to many of us. Unfortunately, the geography of Puerto Vallarta is such that it is difficult to get from point A to point B through the city in a way that doesn't involve vehicles. It is a challenging thing, but hopefully our government will continue to be mindful of it, and hopefully, on a more specific slash selfish note, hopefully at some point the government will realize that a bicycle path is not a sidewalk with a little stretched piece of paint in it. So there's a lot to be learned there, and there's a lot of cultural things that could be implemented. Wouldn't it be wonderful if a lot of the downtown area was pedestrian only and we had a way to get from points north to points south? That would be fantastic. Um, Thank you very much for that, Deb. I am very glad that you're feeling connected, and it's always wonderful to create connections. That's what it is about. Yesterday, we had a really wonderful time together. It was wonderful for me because somebody came up with a very specific questions. Where are the maps to Puerto Vallarta? And everybody, or many people in this community, provided helpful information, and that is what this is all about in my book. With that said, let's take a quick look at the weather, and let's take a quick look at some things that you've shared with me that I wanted to share back. Well, it's hot and humid again, but it is very, very cloudy today. It is 85 degrees right now. It feels like 94, 29 Celsius. Humidity is high, 76%. There are morning showers scheduled for the day, and hopefully we'll get some. And hopefully it'll rain this afternoon. As you know, this afternoon some of us are going to get together at El Moro Paraíso to bring some money to the horse co-op that has been collected so that their horses can be properly fed and they can continue to do the horseback riding tours that they have been provided. We've been sharing the link, and yesterday our friend Logan was very excited to share with us that he has been successful in the raising of money, and hopefully this will continue to be the case. Now, I want to finally, we've been doing all kinds of other things, and other kinds of news have come in the way, but I wanted to react to some of the things that you shared with us. Halfway through the week, I asked, what has been moving you? What have you been watching? What have you been reading? What have you been enjoying? What have you been listening to? And that question was not a random question, although I never asked that question specifically before. Whenever I used to, and I say I used to because we're not doing a lot of socializing at home these days with the weather, and it's too warm, and my television is an eternal holiday, or at least a temporary holiday. But anyhow, it is. I usually invite friends that visit to bring music, or get ready to talk about a book, or whatever it is that they've been enjoying lately. So I kind of enjoy this notion of having cultural potlucks in which somebody just talks about whatever they're doing. So halfway through the week, I asked you, well, Luna and I asked you, what are you doing? What are you listening? And some of the suggestions that came back were absolutely fascinating. Somebody mentioned, for example, this beautiful poem, When Lilacs Last in the Dooryard Bloom'd, which is a poem that was written by Walt Whitman in the aftermath of the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln in 1865. Well, in 1945, the acclaimed choral conductor Robert Shaw, American conductor, commissioned a German composer um, to write a piece of music that included this text. And this was a piece of work that was premiered in New York City in what was the year? Let me see. Well, this was composed by Paul Hindemith, and it was premiered in New York City in 1946, the year afterwards. And it is a work that is scored for mezzo soprano and baritone soloists, plus a full orchestra and a full chorus. And it's a work that I've known, being a choral conductor, having been a choral conductor in my youth, and I have explored the work. But interestingly enough, I came across this wonderful video produced by Carnegie Hall, in which conductor Robert Shaw prepares his chorus for a performance of the work to take place at Carnegie Hall. And it is a 1 hour and a half documentary of what goes on in the rehearsal process for a conductor to prepare a chorus to perform such a piece. Now, there's such a thing as singing together with a bunch of people, and then there's such a thing as having a chorus. And one of my favorite moments in the, oh God, look at me, I'm all disheveled. One of my favorite moments in the documentary is when Robert Shaw, who's known for being very passionate and meticulous and cantankerous during his rehearsals, he looks at the chorus at some point and he goes, "Don't you realize the big gelatinous mass that you are?" And he's totally serious, and everybody knows that this is how he addresses the singers. And he's mean and he's rude, but he's wonderful when he does it. And he's right. You know, when you have 50, 60, 100 singing voices, each one breathing independently from one another, each one enunciating independently from one another, the process of bringing them together to sound as a single instrument is monumental. And this process, it is described in beautiful, gorgeous detail in this documentary that I'm going to share with you. And by the time the documentary is over, you're going to be so familiarized with some of the music and the sound of the music that you will absolutely love the piece. And of course, it was Robert Shaw who commissioned the work. So he is as intimately connected to it as a conductor can be. So I'm going to leave the link with you so that you can take a look at this at your own time. Then you also mentioned Angelina Jordan, who is a 14-year-old singer from Norway that has turned the pop world upside down since she auditioned for Norway Has Talent back in 2004. She was only 7 years of age, and she has become extremely popular and successful with her voice. She really sounds like she is much older than she is. And it is really interesting that even though she has released a number of singles and she has released a full album, she has refused offers to be signed to any particular record label while she is still growing up. And this is something that is really interesting to see. I'm going to leave you with, I did some research and I found that this performance of hers singing Elton John's Goodbye Yellow Brick Road will give you a good taste as to what her pipes are capable of. And speaking of pipes, I also want to mention that some of you mentioned Il Divo. Il Divo being this amazing male singing quartet. And somebody mentioned that they were listening to Ancora, which is their second studio album. It was released in 2006, and it went on to #1 in the Billboard charts the moment it was released. Il Divo is one of the most popular classical crossover ensembles in the world. Their live concerts have sold over 2 million concert tickets worldwide, just from the first four albums. And in their first world tour, they had concerts in 69 cities in 18 countries, and all of them were sold out. And we are actually a lot closer to Il Divo than you think, because the man that is in charge of conducting their orchestra whenever they go from city to city, whenever they're touring around the world, is none other than our very own Miguel Almaguer. Miguel Almaguer is known to many because he is the orchestra conductor that was hired to come to Puerto Vallarta to begin to launch the Orquesta Escuela de Puerto Vallarta, the original school orchestra or orchestra school here in Puerto Vallarta. Miguel stayed in Puerto Vallarta for a few years steering this project, and then it was eventually time for him to move on and pursue other things. While he was in Mexico City, he received an invitation to conduct the quartet in a concert, or maybe two, or I don't know how many. And before you know it, Miguel became the musical director for Il Divo and had been touring with Il Divo for the past 3 years or so, maybe even longer. I've lost track of time. And needless to say, when the pandemic came, all the concerts and all the touring stopped. But I was very privileged, and I do mean that, to have met Miguel while he was living here in Puerto Vallarta. We realized that we had a lot of things in common, and he has remained a dear, dear friend of mine. And I am sure that he's watching the show today, because I've invited him to be our guest on Sunday. This coming Sunday, on Sunday Funday, Miguel is going to be my very special guest here during Coffee and Headlines. And he's going to tell us all about what it is like to go from city to city nonstop and arrive in the morning, give a concert, hop in a plane, and then go to other cities. So I'm very excited. We talked about this morning. He's also volunteered that he has plans to come to Puerto Vallarta, hopefully in the next few months, to give a recital. I won't spoil the news because I still need to get some details. But again, it'll be absolutely wonderful to have Miguel as a guest in the show this coming Sunday. I want to take a quick look at your comments. Today is heyday. Yes, absolutely it is. Should I tell the joke, Logan? I should probably tell the joke. For those people that don't know, if you've ever wondered what gay horses eat, hey! There, I did it. Robert Shaw came to the University of Kentucky and led my choir and orchestra in 1974. I think that's wonderful, Dave. I never had the pleasure of singing for him when I was in college, but that must have been absolutely mind-blowing. I think that is absolutely wonderful. Noi, I am so glad that you love this, and I'm so glad that you didn't know that Miguel is the conductor. It is so funny because Miguel has very fond memories of spending time at Daiquiri Dick's when you were a chef there, and he frequently asks me how you're doing. So it is just great to see friends remembering one another and connecting with one another. Bravo for Miguel. He's a terrific guy. He absolutely is. And again, I am very, very excited that he's going to join us on Sunday. I believe it was you, Kathleen, who mentioned Il Divo, and this is something that you were listening to. So yes, here's Miguel. Check it out. It'll be a pleasure to be with you. This is great, Miguel. Qué bueno que estás con nosotros. Sunday. It'll be fun to have a nice conversation about the pleasures of making music and, of course, the challenges of making music moving forward. Miguel is one of so many artists that are used to being on stage and making a living making music and connecting with people through music. And these are definitely challenging times for all, and not only for those that are on the stage performing, but also for those of us that love and respect the work that goes on stage. So I still have a few things pending from the things that you mentioned that you were doing this week. Somebody mentioned Ma Vie en Rose, the film, which I've seen and I want to revisit it again. Somebody mentioned Annie Dillard, a couple of books by her. I didn't know that she was a Pulitzer Prize winner, and I have been doing some research on this. And of course, my dear friend Suzanne Kirkpatrick mentioned Hamilton, which I believe is out on Disney Plus. Unfortunately, we don't get Disney Plus here in Mexico unless you have one of them VPN things attached to your television sets. But we'll do this again. We'll do this again because I feel that the more we can exchange knowledge and inspiration with one another about what we're listening to or what we're reading, the more rich our lives become. With that thought in mind, I am going to get ready for my afternoon outing to feed horses, but not before I thank you, as always, for sharing 30 minutes or so with us and bringing in some of your suggestions and your comments and your thoughts and your concerns. Again, there are no silly questions. There are no silly fears. It is important that we can all share our concerns with one another and get out of those concerns in the best way possible together. Alvin Ceballos from La Barberia is saying hello. That's really wonderful. Russell asks, am I familiar with Il Volo? Yes, I am, absolutely. Yes, we're going to look forward to our time with Miguel on Sunday. This will be great. Paco, it would be cool if I went live this afternoon. You know what, Michael? I would love to go live. Unfortunately, there is really poor internet at Moro Paraíso. It is not within the city, but I will make sure to try to do some videoing. I will try to do some taping while I'm out there so that you can get a sense as to what's going on. And Mark Hartman, are you gone, Mark? If you've left Puerto Vallarta, I hope you will come back soon. I hope that wherever you're going or whatever you're doing, you're keeping safe. And that's basically it. I thank you, as always, for keeping in touch. Please have a wonderful day. Have a great weekend. Stay healthy, stay happy, stay creative, and stay kind with one another. I will see you soon.